Hello guys, welcome to this video. So in this video we will be looking at how to build out a full stack Next.js 14 user CRUD application in the browser using JavaScript and Tailwind CSS. And you can actually see the live demo on the screen, guys. We are actually running this application on localhost 3000, and currently we have one user out there which we are displaying it from MongoDB database. We have the functionality for creating user, displaying users, or updating the information or deleting them. So we have the username, email address, and now if I want to create a new username, if I show you the database right here, this is my database Next.CRUD project. We have a table of collection of user, and we have this one record which is available, which is ID is the primary key, name, email address, and password. So we are actually can create a new user, and if I click the button create user, here I can provide the name and then the email address, and here we can provide the password as well. Click on create, and now your second record will be created, and instantly without any delay you will see the result as well. So if I just refresh my database and show to you, just refresh, you will see the second record is added in the MongoDB database, and we are simply showing that right in the front end as well. So I will be showing you in this tutorial, guys, the data fetching, how we do in Next.js 14, the API routes. All this will be coming in this video. We can even edit this information. If I click the edit button, you will able to edit a particular user, and this is actually the API route localhost 3000 edit followed by the primary key, which is the ID. This is dynamic routes in Next.js, and here you can change the username. Click on update, and now you can see your username is simply updated. And if I show you the database as well, if I just refresh, my username is also updated as well. We can even click the delete button right here. If you want to delete a certain entry, you will see, are you sure you want to delete Sanjay? I will say simply delete, and it will make that delete request, and instantly that will be removed. And if I show you, refresh it, that entry is removed right here. There is a single record available. We can create, delete, update, and we can show users. So in this way, in Next.js 14, we are using Tailwind CSS for the UI that you are seeing right here, user interface. So if you are interested in watching this video, please hit that like button, subscribe the channel. And if you're interested in purchasing the full source code with directory structure and full documentation and support from me, the link is given. You can go to my website procodestore.com. The link is given in the description of the video. After you purchase it, you will be redirected to Google Drive, where you will be having this zip file which will contain all this directory structure with the full documentation and support I will provide you if you face any problem. So the source code is given in the description. So now let's get started, guys, by building this application. So we are using Next.js. I already told you guys at the recording of this video, at the time of recording this video, the latest version is 14 version, and we are using this. We are actually using MongoDB, and for interacting with MongoDB we will be using Mongoose package, which allows you to actually interact with MongoDB database, create collections, insert data, delete data, update data. So 2 million weekly downloads, and we are using Tailwind CSS, which is a user interface for building user interfaces instead of pre-defined CSS classes it has. And then we are also using SWR, which is a data fetching library for React.js. So it's a React hook library for remote data fetching. So we also will using this package as well. So let's start building this, guys. So the very first thing I will do, I will simply go into my projects directory, and I will simply make a new project. So now to make that project, the command is npx create next app @latest. So we are installing the latest version. So Next.js user CRUD project. This is actually the name of the project that I'm giving right here. This is npx create next app at the rate latest. So just enter it. It will ask you some questions that you want to answer it by setting the Next.js 14 application. So it will actually ask you whether you want to set up the source directory, you want to use TypeScript or not. So I will say no. I will stick to the default option. I want to use JavaScript. ESLint, I don't want to use it, so no. Tailwind CSS, I will say yes. I want to use Tailwind CSS, so simply press yes. It will set up automatically for you. Would you like to use the source directory? I will say yes, because I do need to use the source directory. And app router, by default, yes. Recommended. So would you like to customize the default import allies? I will say no. Stick to the default options, so don't change any option. So now it will install all the packages which are required for this. So this will hardly take 5 to 10 seconds depending upon your internet connection. So once it is in setup, we can open this project inside VS Code. So just wait for the command to finish. So it is also installing those dev dependencies. If you see, this is Tailwind CSS, this is Post CSS. So it is automatically setting up the Tailwind CSS for you. So you don't need to manually do it. So that's the advantage of using these questions. So depending upon your preference, you can use any UI framework. So once it is installed, we will open the project in the VS Code. So now it is created that next project. I will cd into Next.js user CRUD and open it inside my VS Code. This is actually the basic structure of a Next 14 project, guys. We have the app router folder. In the source directory, we do have the app folder right here. If you see in the source directory, we do have the app folder. Inside the app folder, we have the layout file, we have the index page.js. By default, every route that you create, every client route that you create, you must name your file as page.js right here. So if I just start my Next.js application by running npm run dev, this will start the development server on localhost 3000. So this is my layout file where you can actually provide your title and description and your head tag. This is global for your application. This is the app route. Here you can write our API routes or client routes. As you know, and Next.js is a full stack application. You can write client side code and as well as server side code. You don't need any Node.js or Express. So if I just navigate to localhost 3000, it will just compile your application, and it will take some time whether you're running it for the very first time. After it will refresh it. You will see this is the Next.js basic app, and now we can edit this file right here. We can remove everything from here. We don't need this, so we can remove this and just have a hello world message. So just refresh now. There you will be this hello world message. All the styling will be removed. You will see that. So in this way, now to set up your Tailwind CSS, guys, you do need to actually, you have, see, basically it created this tailwind config.js file in the root directory, and inside this it automatically done this. So now inside your global CSS file, I think this file is not present. You do need to create this file. Okay, I think you do need to create this file. If you see in the package.json file, we have these packages installed, which is post CSS and tailwind CSS. And we also need to install this package as well in order to set up tailwind CSS. So just execute this command, which is npm install d for a dev dependency. We need to install this auto prefixer package. So we already have installed this Tailwind and Post CXS, so just need to install this. That's all. And just here inside your root directory, in the source directory, you do need to create a file called as globals.css. It is saying that it already exists. Oh, sorry, it already exists. So you will see it has already Tailwind. It has already included that. So you don't need to set up anything. So it already automatically did that for you whenever you answered that question. So now in the layout.js file, you can see at the very top, we are including this global CSS right here, globally inside our application. So that's why it is included. Now we can actually give any Tailwind class right here to this element. So there is actually a class in Tailwind which you can give, which is bgred 500. So you need to restart your server, npm run dev. So you can give any Tailwind class now to your JSX. So you will see the background color will change to red. So we will look at later on the CSS part. For the time being, we just need to set up the MongoDB database. So we are using this special software MongoDB Compass, which allows you to actually create your collections and tables. MongoDB Compass, just search on Google and install this software. It's a GUI based software for MongoDB, completely free. So once you install this, you just need to, it will look something like this. So basics, this is a connection string, MongoDB localhost 27017. This is a connection string. By default, it runs on this port number. And right here inside your Next.js application, you just need to create a .env file. And right here, just write this connection string. So just say MongoDB URI and just write this connection string, MongoDB ://localhost 27017, followed by your database name. So I will create this database next CRUD, or I can say coding Shiksha, sorry, free media tools. This is the name of the my channel right here. So I will create this database free media tools. So first of all, connect it, and now simply create this database free media tools. I think you don't need to create the database manually. This Next.js will automatically create it. So you just need to provide the URL, this full URL alongside with your database name. You don't need to manually create the database. It will automatically get created. So .env file is created. Now right in the source folder, you need to create a lib folder where we will be creating this MongoDB.js file. So here we will be writing we'll be importing the Mongoose library from the Mongoose package, and I think we haven't installed the Mongoose package. If you see, okay, we haven't installed it. We do need to install it. npm I mongoose and swr for data fetching. These two modules are necessary. Simply install this npm I mongoose and swr. Simply install them, and this will be our dependency. So it will get added right here in this section. You can see that we are using the latest version of everything, React 18, Next 14. So it is, these two packages are added, mongoose and swr. So right here we need to import the mongoose package from the mongoose package, and right here we need to specify the connection string. So MongoDB URI, and this will be coming from the environment variable process.env and MongoDB URI. And here we'll simply compare that if MongoDB URI is not set, then in that case we'll be throwing a new error to the user that please define the MongoDB URI env variable inside .env file like this. So that's all. After this, if the variable is defined, in that case we will say global dot mongoose, and then if this is not defined, then we will say cached is equal to global mongoose is equal to connection null and promise null. So what we are doing right here, basically global dot mongoose is actually a connection variable. We are storing it inside this catch variable. So we are simply checking in this if condition, if this catch variable doesn't have a value, in that case we are defining it to global dot mongoose, and here we are defining the connection to be null and the promise to be null. And then we will define a function which will actually connect the DB database connection method. So this will be a simple async function, and here we will again say if catch dot connection. So this means that if the connection already exists in the catch, then return that connection, catch dot connection. If the connection is not available, in that case we do need to connect it. So if catched dot promise, then we need to define the options right here. Buffer commands to false. This is slightly complicated, guys. You just need to copy paste whatever I'm doing right here. This is just to actually connect the database. So this is not equal to the just colon right here. After we define the options, we just need to say catch dot promise, and then this mongoose have the connect method to actually connect to that database MongoDB URI and pass the options as well. So this will actually return a promise. Will return this mongoose variable. You can see that. So we have the connect method inside to actually connect to that database. Then it will return a promise which will have this connection variable. So we are simply returning it. So after we do this, we basically will store this variable catch.connection, catch.promise, and then we will return this catch.connection, and then we will just simply export this file so that we can use it in different files. Export default db connect. So we are only exporting this function right here that we defined, db connect. So we are exporting it so that we can use it in different files. So similarly, we need to create a new folder right here, which is models. So here models represent the data which we want to store it inside the table. So just create a user.js, and we will now here in this file we will define the schema or data what we will be storing it. Again, we will using the mongoose package, and right here we will define the user schema. So new mongoose schema, so don't need this. So in the schema we have three variables. Name will be of type string, and it will be required, so required to be true boolean parameter. So name is required. Then email, again type will be of string, and it will be required to be true. And one other property we are adding is unique. So the email should be unique. It can't be the same. Two emails can't be the same. It should be unique. And then the password. So in this easy way, you can define your schema, whatever data that you want to store it, in which structure required to be true. So we can have more restrictions, such as the, let's suppose if you want to have a password of certain limit, minimum length, maximum length, you can read the mongoose documentation. It has a very filters available. So after you do this, we can actually export this, export default mongoose dot models dot user, and it will actually create this model based upon the schema. We will name this model as user schema, like this. So this simply means that using the schema that we defined, just create a table or mod, just collection inside the database. So once you run your application, it will actually, let me run npm run dev. It will actually create your collection. Now we need to, guys, in the next step, we need to create our we need to just edit this page.jsx to actually retrieve everything which is present in the database and show some routes. So we will be doing it in the next section. Now guys, we will be first of all be looking at the API routes in Next.js 14, how to actually create a backend API route in Next.js 14. So we will be retrieving the data right here, which is present right here in this table. We have the database, we have the table already created user, and already two records are present. So I will be showing you how to actually create a backend API route in Next.js 14. This is really easy. We have the source folder and we have the app folder right here. This is the app router. So inside this app folder, you need to create a special folder which is API, which is specifically assigned for creating API routes. So just create right here the API folder, and right inside this API folder that you see, the API folder is created. We will be creating whichever API structure you want. So I will be creating user. I am working with user, so that's why I will call this as a slash API slash users. I will create a brand new folder right here, users. So right here, now every API route that you create in Next.js 14 needs to be as route.js. So this is mandatory. Every client-side route must be named as page.jsx, and every server-side route must be named as route.js. The structure will look something like this: localhost 3000 slash API slash users, and then here in this we will be creating route.js. So you will see we have created the API folder. Inside that we have created user folder, and then here we have our route file. This is the actual structure. So right here we have our, we'll make this export async function, and this will be a get request simply. So we have this basic get function available to us which have request and response. This is provided by Next.js inside your route.js file. For every method we have a special method. So for the post method we will look something like this. We will write here post like this. So for every method we have a function. So for get method, here we can return anything to the user. Let's suppose you want to return a response. You can simply return new response json.stringify, and then here we can say message to be hello world. So this is our API route. So if I navigate to, so our localhost 3000, so this is the client side here. If you open localhost 3000, so this is actually opening right here. This is the client side. If I want to go to the server side, I will say slash API slash users. So slash API slash user. So it is saying some error is there, which is a reporting observer is not defined. Let me check, guys, what is error. Guys, you can see I have made a very silly mistake right here. Instead of writing response, we return reporting observer. That's why it was creating problem, and you were seeing this message that reporting observer is not defined. Here we need to write the response right here. Just return. We need to return the response, and here we are returning a JSON property message hello world. If I navigate to localhost 3000, this is our client side. If I you will see that it is our client side. If I want to go to the API route slash API slash user, so you will basically see this is our API route that we created, a very simple route which contains a message hello world. This is a property. So in this way you can create both client and server side in Next.js. Now what we need to do, we need to actually make a route where we can actually get all the users which are present in the database. First of all, we need to DB connect, we need to simply take this from this lib folder which is located in the MongoDB, and then we need to import the user as well from models and slash user. So we do need the DB connection and the user model as well. And just make your .env file, the database right here which we are working right here, which already contains some data, next CRUD project. Just change this, and I will change this just to next CRUD project. This is my database. So already there is a user table which is available. So right here what I will do, I will simply make a function, export async function get, and right here first of all we will make the connection to the database. We will say await db connect, we will call this function, and then in the try catch block we will basically fetch all the users from the database. So right here we will say let users await user, and it contains this function find. It will actually find out all the users. Just pass an empty object right here, and then here we need to return a API response JSON.stringify with success. We will put a success property and also data property which will be the number of users which are present right here. If you just refresh right here, just refresh your database, it is saying to that catch is not defined. So basically guys, the link is given to the full source code I have given, so you can go to the description, and I think I made some kind of mistake right here. So what I will do, I will simply go to the lib folder and go to MongoDB and paste it, the correct code. So now if I refresh now, there will be no error. It is, you can see it is compiled. If you will see that two users are there, localhost 3000 slash API users. So currently if you see in the database we have two users, so we are actually returning those two users from this API route. We have the ID, primary key, name, email, password. This is also. So now this API route is ready guys. Now we can consume this API route inside our front end. So in this way you can easily create your API routes inside Next.js. And now in the next section we will be consuming this route and displaying these entries in the front end using Tailwind CSS. So now guys, in this section we will be retrieving all the details from this API route that we created in the last section in the home page of the application. So just you need to navigate to the source folder, and you need to go to the page.js file right here, and here we need to edit this file. So if I just check now, it is actually showing if I go to it, it is showing this hello world message. Instead of this, we need to edit this and remove everything from here. And just first of all, make sure that we explicitly said that this is a client-side component. In Next.js 14, you need to set this using this use client directive at the very top. So this signifies that this is the actual client-side component, and we do need to make sure that it's mandatory. After we do this, we do need to create a just change this to user. This is a user component. Here we'll be showing the list of users. So just change it. So after this, guys, what we will say, we'll define some state. So we will be defining the data which will be coming and the error, if any sort of error take place. For this, we will be using this hook, which is use SWR. It will be imported from this SWR. So it is static validate library in React hook library, which makes it very much easy to actually retrieve data from the API route. So we will say the location slash API slash users, and then we will assign this function, which is fetcher. So we need to define this function right here. It will actually take the URL, and now we'll use the fetch API, which is built in. You need not have to install any package. Here we will be simply going to this URL, and this will actually return a promise to us dot then, and here we need to simply return the response.json property. That's all. Sorry, we can directly do this response.json, or what we can do, we can say return response.json. That's all. So we defined a function. We basically using use SWR, where we provide the URL to fetch. So we will be fetching from this URL, and this will be coming. It will automatically set the state in this data variable, or if any sort of error take place, then it will show you this error. So right here, after this, we will simply say that if any sort of error take place, in that case we need to say a diff fail to load, and if any sort of data is not present, in that case also we will say loading. This is very much necessary. If you have a lot of data coming, then you can show a loading bar as well. So it is a very good package. It allows you to set this automatically. So we need not have to use state or use effect. So it basically reduces the boilerplate code, and it's a very good dependency SWR. And after that you do this, we need to assign these statement classes right here. Flex right in the JSX class name, flex justify center, just make it in the center, and then we have another diff max w3xl. These are all tailwind classes. P4 for padding, bg white stands for background white. Then we can even provide a shadow as well, shadow on medium devices, MD, and rounded on large devices. And then we will have a h1 tag, which will actually show to the user that create user. So if you just refresh now, let me just show you if it is working as not. It is saying object is not iterable. Use SWR. Importing, we are importing this. What is this error? Use WR. Slash API slash users. Let me just restart it and just check. Again it is saying object is not iterable, cannot read property. Let me see, guys, what is error. Now guys, I just need to figure out the two issues which are happening. So basically what we are using this used SWR. I just wanted to show you, you may also encounter the same issue. This will actually return a object right here, not a array. Just make this curly bracket, not square bracket. It will actually contains these two properties, the data or error. The second mistake that we did is actually we don't need to return this JSON from here. We need to return this full function, this return full function. So how we can do that? We can either write like this, we can write this. I think it should work. Compiled. You will now see it is now perfectly working. So it simply means the same thing. We are returning this full function, fetch function to this hook, or we can write it in a cleaner way, just writing on a single line. So this also means the same thing. We don't need to explicitly write the return statement. So this will also means the same thing. We are returning this whole function to this hook. It will contain these two properties in the object data or error. So now this will be working. Now to show this data, and first of all, if you see this the gray color that is happening, these are the default styles of Next.js. Just go to your globals.css. Apart from this, delete everything. We don't need the default styling, so I will simply delete everything. And now if you refresh, you will not see any default styling. So this is the thing. Just make these slight modifications and now you can actually get your data. So now inside the h1 we need to give some classes to it. Font, we need to bold it, margin bottom 4, text center. So if you do this, it will give, just add this in the center of the screen. So this is actual heading. And now we also need to have the link tag, which will be imported from the next package, and it contains the link. And this is the link tag, guys. Here we can actually create an anchor tag. So you can say create user. And I think this was user, not create user, sorry. And now we can actually provide a href property. So whenever you click this, it will navigate you to the /create route, which we haven't created. And right here, we need to give some classes to it of bgblue. These are all tailwind classes right here, bgblue 500. And when we hover onto this bgblue 700, and the color of the hyperlink will be in white color, and font will be bold. So if you just make these changes and just see the localhost 3000, you will actually see this will look something like this. And also you need to make it in the centers of the screen. So padding, we also need to give py2 px4 from the x direction, and it will be rounded block, margin bottom 4, text center. So you will see the button will be created in background color will be blue and everything is styled. So if you just click this button, this will show you this 404 error because the page is not found. We haven't created this route. In the next section, I will show you how to create these client-side routes in Next.js 14. So now we just need to, after this, we need to show this information from the database. So after this link, we will have a unordered list tag. And inside this, we will use the map operator, data dot. So if you see the structure of the API route, if you see we are returning the data property from here. We can even directly return it, the users. So if you directly return, if I show you localhost API /users, we will have directly our users property, which will be a simple array. So we can simply loop through this array. So we can simply write here data.user.map. So inside this, we will have our key parameter, which we need to set, which will be user underscore ID, which is the primary key of the table. And then here we can actually show the name of the user, the email address. So inside double curly bracket user.name, user.email. So if you go to localhost 3000, so you will see two records are there. We are simply printing these out. So we can now style this. We can give some classes to it. PG gray, 100 rounded. And these paragraphs will also have classes, font bold. So it will look something like this. You will see this is the first record, second record, and then we have two buttons for actually updating the user or deleting them. So we will have a div tag right here. We have again, we'll be using the link tag. This label of this will be edit. So if you just go to this edit href property will not be having this href now. I will show you a dynamic routes later on whenever we do it. So for the time being, we will just add these classes, margin top 2, justify center. And similarly, we will have the delete button as well. So we just need to give these classes to it. Text blue 500. And for the delete button, we will have the red button, text red 500. So this will be there in the same div tag. So we don't need the separate div tag. So just after this, you can paste it. Href expects a string or object. For the time being, we can just say /edit. We'll now see. So the UI is almost ready, guys. This is actually the UI, which would look something like this. If you click edit, it will go to this route. We will have dynamic routes for these functionality, but later on we will do it. So the UI is completely ready. Now in the next section, I will show you how to create these routes for creating user, updating or deleting user. So we are successfully showing the users from the database whenever you go to the home page. So we'll be showing you in the next section how to create a brand new user. For the time being, guys, I can just say right here, this for the edit and the delete button, we can directly do right here because we have the user ID. So the dynamic routes is very simple. In Next.js, we write curly bracket and then we can write this dynamic route /edit and then followed by the user ID. So we'll say user underscore ID like this. And similarly for the delete operation as well, we will be using the ID parameter in curly bracket /delete /user dot underscore ID. So this is dynamic routes because we are passing the ID of the user in both these routes. If you refresh now, click on the edit button, it will actually take the user ID. You will see the ID of the user in this route. Similarly in the delete request as well, you will see /delete. So now in the next section, we will look at how to create a brand new user. So now in this section, guys, we will be looking at how to create a simple form by which we allow the user to create a new user. Right in the source directory, just make a new folder for create. So this is a client side route, so slash create it will do. And then we need to make this page.js file. This is mandatory that you may name your file as page.js. So it's a client side route that we are creating, client side page. Just need to mention explicitly use client at the very top. And then here we need to, it will be a simple functional component. And you can simply make this as create user. So right here, we need to set some state for this component. So we need to say the name for setting the name. So we'll use here useState. It will be imported directly. So current value will be nothing. And similarly for the email as well, email set email useState nothing, and for the password as well. So these three things we will be setting or creating it like this. And we do need the router as well for actually redirecting the user when they are actually created your record. So now to redirect them to a different page, we will actually use the use router hook, which is available, which will be coming from next/router. This is a hook. And now we will write our JSX. So we will have this classes, tailwind classes, p4 space y4. This is padding. After this, we need to have a heading, text to Excel, font bold, and here we'll say create user. So if you just navigate to slash create, it is saying to us that use router. Next router was not mounted. Let me see what is the problem right here. Okay, you just need to make sure it is coming from next/navigation. Just make this change, not next router, next/navigation. You will now see it will go to localhost 3000/create. This is the create user which is coming. So after you do this to Excel, sorry. So here we will actually have a simple form, and we will be giving a class to it of space y4, and we will have this input field, input element. We'll be giving a class name to it. So width, I will make it full, padding px in the x direction 3, py2 in the y direction. It will have some border as well. It will be rounded, and focus, when we focus this, we will remove the outline to none. When we focus it, we will add a border to it of blue color 500. So these are the classes that we are attaching. So then what we need to do, we also need to attach the type parameters. So we'll be storing type will be text. So the value of this will be name, on change. So we'll be attaching a event handler to it. So whenever the value is changed, we'll be calling the hook function set name e.target.value. Very simple stuff. If you studied React.js, you will know everything what I'm doing right here. And placeholder, we can attach a simple placeholder. We can say enter name. So one field is added. If you see here, you can enter your name. So what I can do, I can simply copy this, repeat it two more times just to save some time. And here we can replace set email, it will be email, type will be email, enter email, this will be password, this will be set password, we'll say this is a placeholder, and you will now see this is actual form. Here you can write your email and then the password. Lastly guys, we do need a button for this to actually submit. So we'll say create user, and then we will have the classes which needs to be attached to the button. These will be BG, background will be blue, 500 when we hover onto the button. BG blue will be 600, text will be white, padding X4, PY2, and it will be rounded. So we need to attach a on-click listener to this button, or we can simply say type is equal to submit. That's all. We don't need to attach on-click here. We need to attach a on-submit to the form element right here. So when we submit the form, this on-submit will actually execute a function which I will call it handle submit. So we need to now define this function, handle submit. This will have this e parameter passed to it. So we need to first of all prevent the auto submission of the form like this. Just make this function as async as well. Asynchronously we'll running this, and then we need to simply make a fetch request, await fetch, and /API/users, and right here we will actually be calling a simple post request. Here you will define a simple method to be post, and here you will passing the headers. So here we need to define this header, which is content type application/JSON, and then we need to define the body as well. So this will be json.stringify, and here we are defining two properties, name, email, and password. We are passing these three properties in the body of the request while we are making it. So then it will actually return you a promise guys after it is done. It will actually return a promise. Body is done right here. It will return you a promise. So if response.ok, if this is a case, then we need to redirect the user to the home page. You can say router dot push to the home page. That's all. So this is all that we need to have. Now we need to make this post request in this API routes folder /API/user. Go to the route.js file, and right here in this file we do need to make a post request similarly that we did for the get request. So I will show you step by step. It's very simple. So let me now show you. So just go to your API folder route.js file. Right inside here we will make a post request to add a new user. For adding the new user, we will simply say export async function post request response. First of all, we will connect to the database. So we will say db connect. We will say the try catch block once again. So here we will simply say we need to actually create the user. We will say user.create. Function is available in Mongoose, and right here we will say await. request.json. So in this way, you can actually get the data which you are passing right here in the content type application JSON in the body, json.stringify. We can get this using request.json. So after we get this, we can actually return a new response, json.stringify, success to be true, and data will be user. And one other property we will be returning right here. You can even return the headers as well if you want to. This is not mandatory, but it's a good practice. You can just add a status code 201 and the header as well. This is not mandatory, but it's a good programming practice to actually return the status code and the content type as well in the header. So if any error is there, then also we can return a full response to the user just to tell them that 400 error is there, like this: success false, status 400, headers content type application JSON. So this is all. If you now check, if you navigate to your application, click on create user, enter the information. Let's suppose I enter john@gmail.com and password. Click on create user. So I think it is saying to us, if you check your database, this entry hasn't been added. I think some error has taken place. Export async function post. Let me see. We don't need this. So, user create. In the try catch error right here. Let me see, just troubleshoot is creating a user. Let me see if this error, if we are getting this request.json. And in the create file right here, let me see if we are getting this name, email, and password. And just don't do this. Don't redirect the user to the home page. Just stay in this page. So this is the practice that we use to troubleshoot whenever any error take place. So John, handle submit, we are having this on submit. Let me see what is the problem which is there. This is the create file, and just wait guys, let me see what is there. Guys, I figured out the error. I just made a very silly mistake. And if you see in the e.prevent default, this D needs to be capital. So just make this slight adjustment. D needs to be capital. And one more issue in the route.js file, we essentially written this console log statement by accident. This is actually a asynchronous call right here, request.json. It needs to be having await keyword. So simply remove this and rerun your application. And if I go to localhost 3000 and go to create user, and let's suppose I create a user, John. So now it should create a user. So nothing happens, but if you see, we have made a request. This data is coming, you will see it is console logging it. And if you check in the database, if I refresh now, you will now see there will be 3 records. This is John, entry is also been inserted. So what you can now refresh, go to this, and right here we can redirect the user. You can say router.push to the home page. So whenever the request is successful, we will redirect the user back to the home page. So if you see now, there will be 3 entries out there. Now again, if I create a new one, let's suppose smith@gmail.com, click on create user. So now there will be 4 entries. Smith entry is also being added. So in this way, you can do it. Let me delete this alert statement, we don't need it. So in this way you can create as many users. Click on this, enter the name, enter the email address, click on create. You will see it will create the user and also inside the database as well. So you will see now the rest 2 operations are remaining, the delete and the edit operation. So we'll be looking these operations in the next video. Now guys, in this section we will be looking about how to delete a specific user. So if you just go to localhost 3000, we are in the last section we saw how to create a brand new user. So if I click the delete button, it will redirect me to this page 404 not found. And if you see the route here, localhost 3000/delete followed by this is dynamic. So this will be every time different depending upon which user that you select. This is called as dynamic API routes. Now to create these dynamic routes, go to your API folder, and right here in the users folder, we do need to create after this a dynamic parameter which is square brackets. So in this case we will be passing the ID parameter. You can give anything right here, you can give any name, but for this purpose I will be giving ID. So inside this we need to create our file route.js. This is actually called as dynamic route. So here we need to actually get the information about the specific user which is passed right here. So first of all, we do need to actually require the db connect, and this will be coming again from this lib folder, and it is MongoDB. And similarly, we need to also get the user model from the models folder, and inside this we have the file present which is user. So after you do this, we now need to actually write a method, simple method, which will actually return the details about a specific user using their ID. So how we actually get this ID variable? We have this object pass here, which is called as params. You can call it anything. So this is actually a function right here, export async function get, and this is actually the params which will be passed right here. So in this case we are passing the ID here. So now to get the ID, we will simply say params.id, parameters.id. So we can console log the ID. So if you now hit this route, if you just go to this route and check, so this is actually a server route. That's why we do need to actually create a client side route where we actually call this. Just create a new folder, delete now, and right here just make a file page.js, and it will be a client side component for deleting the a certain user. And here once again we will be using a functional component. We can call this as delete user. So we need to also write here include the router, use router. So it will be coming from next navigation package, And right here we need to simply extract the ID. So we do this using use params. Use params is actually a hook which is available inside Next navigation. So this is, we are doing it in the client side component. This is actually a server side component. To now, to get the server side component, we use params.id. In the client side, we use params, which is a React hook. And again, we will be using the same concept, which is use the same hook, use SWR. And right here, it actually returns an object which contains two properties, data and error. Once again, we will call the fetch function. And here we'll be providing the ID. If the ID is defined, in that case, we will be making this request to /API/users, and we will pass this ID. If the ID is not defined, then in that case, we will be passing null. And then we will be calling this function fetcher. We do need to define this function at the top. So URL, we will say fetch. It returns a promise. So you can see that it's very simple. We are using use SWR. We are passing the ID right here. So now we need to actually make this request /API/users and this one. So it will call this route here, which is get function. And if you check now, if you refresh your application, click on the delete button. And just make sure inside your page.js file, right here. So here we are simply going to this route /delete, and here we are providing user ID. You will see that. So we are going to this /delete. We have this page.js file, and right here we do need to actually show the user a message. Are you sure you want to delete this user or not? So if you just go to this, it is compiling it, so just wait. So again it will be saying 404 not found. We do need to write the complete file right here. So inside your delete, uh, let me paste this file right here. Oh, sorry, the error is coming because, guys, this is a dynamic route, as I already told you. This is, you can see we are passing this dynamically, this ID parameter. So in the client side also, we do need to follow the same practice. So right here, let me copy this, and so in the delete folder that you created, you need to create the same fashion. You need to create the square brackets ID. So this is the dynamic route. And right here we need to create page.js. So now if you hit this route, you will see this delete user. And in the command line, you will see the ID printed out. So this is a server side route which we are getting this ID passed to it. So we are getting the same ID in the command line inside our route.js. So after we get this, what we need to do, we need to simply delete this. First of all, we need to get the information about this user. So we will say if the ID is not defined, then we need to actually response.status 400, missing ID parameter. So if the ID is not defined, then we will return this error message. So if the ID is defined, then we will basically connect to the database, and then in the try catch block, we will get information about this user. So await user, it contains a function in Mongoose find by ID. We'll pass the ID and then it will return the information. So if the information is not found, in that case, you can return an error message like this: JSON.stringify success to false, status 400, headers. So if the user is defined, in that case, if the user is defined, in that case, we can simply return the response back to the user, JSON.stringify success to true, and the data will be the actual user. We can directly pass the user, not in the data property, just directly pass the user, and the status property will be 200. And so if any sort of error take place, then we can even return this 400 error. So this is actually the full function. In the server side route, we define this get request. Now in the client side component, in the delete page.js file, so we will be getting either the data or the error. Now after this, we can actually have a if condition right here. If the error happens, in that case, we can say failed to load. If the data is not returned, in that case, loading. So right inside the JSX, we can actually write the tailwind classes right here, which is padding 4 space text to Excel font bold, and we will say delete user, and it will basically say to the user, are you sure you want to delete? And here we can dynamically put the username. So you can say data dot name. So if you just refresh here, if you now click the delete button, you will see this data property right here. So inside data property, we have so inside route.js, you will see that inside our this property that you see right here, we are returning the user information. inside this user property directly. So what we can do, we can directly, I think we can directly print out. So now you can see that we can access the name property of the user by like this inside curly bracket data dot user dot name. If you now refresh, you will see this heading. If you are you sure you want to delete this username? If I see the if I show you the server side route here slash API slash users followed by the ID. So here this is the actual ID which uniquely identifies a user. Simply copy this and paste it. So this is actually the route that we return. If someone goes to this server side route, it actually returns the information inside this JSON response and we get user information such as the ID, name, email, password about a specific user. So we are simply displaying this right here. Are you sure you want to delete? And after this, we will have a simple button. So delete button which will be there. So we can actually attach all these tailwind classes. So the background of the button will be red, text will be white, padding for py, the button will be rounded. So if you refresh, there will be a button added, delete button. So if you just go to your home page of the application, click on delete. Now this view will be showing right here. You can try out for any user. You can see that this ID parameter will change because this is a dynamic route. Depending upon which user you select, it will change. So now the task is very simple. When we click this delete button, we need to delete this user. So apart from that, we will also have a cancel button if you don't want to delete the user. So we have the cancel button. If you click it, you will be redirected back to the home page. So use router its function. So click, you will be redirected back to the home page. So now if I click the delete button, I need to delete this. So we need to bind on click listener to this button. You can call this function as handle delete. Now we need to define this function at the very top. So this will be a async function. Just label it async. And then here we need to make a simple fetch call to the backend server slash API slash users. And here we'll be passing the ID of the user in the URL. And the method here will be delete. And we also need to pass the headers right here, which is content type application slash JSON. And so if everything goes okay, then in that case, this will be true and we will be redirecting the user back to the home page. Router.push. This is complete and now we need to go to route.js and now we need to define a method right here to actually delete the user. So this will be very simple. Right at the bottom you can define this export async function delete request and the params will be passed right here. First of all we need to get the ID which is passed params.id. Similarly then we need to make the connection to the database db connect we will call it, and then in this try catch block we need to simply make this request delete that specific user We can do this using await user dot it has its this method delete one, and here we need to pass the ID of the user underscore ID. So we'll pass the ID right here. So after doing this, we can simply check in this if condition that if the user is deleted successfully or not. If the user is does not get deleted, then in that case we can simply return an error message success to false. If the user get deleted successfully, in that case we can return a simple response success property to true, like that. So that's all. This completes the delete operation, and if you now refresh your application and go to a certain user, click on, let's suppose I want to delete this John user, click on delete, click on, now you will see this user is completely gone from the UI. And if I show you the database as well, if I refresh it, only 4 entries are remaining. Let's suppose if I also want to delete this also, so instantly it deletes, it doesn't take any time. You will now see. Now only one user is remaining, and if I show you the database as well, the table only contains one entry, like this. So in this way you can delete user, create user, and also show the list of users which are currently there in the table. Now the only operation which is remaining is the update operation. If I click the edit button, similarly the path will be very similar. So we will be covering this section, covering this edit feature in the next section. Now guys, we will be looking at how to tackle the edit operation. In the last section we look at the delete operation. If I click edit, again it will be a dynamic route. ID will be passed in the URL. So once again we need to create the server, oh sorry, client side component. For this we need to create a brand new folder inside the source directory. This one for the edit, and then create another, this will be a dynamic route, so square brackets ID which will be passed. So inside this once again we will create page.js. So the file name must be page.js every time. And now this will be a client side component, so that's why use client. And you can rename this to edit user. And the process will typically remain the same. Again we need the router package, so it will be coming from use router. Next/navigation, and we again need to extract the ID. We'll be using the use params. Again it will be coming from next navigation, and again we will be using the use SWR to actually data fetching from the server route to actually get the information about the user which we need to update. So again we will make first of all a request to the server route /API/users. First of all we need to pass the ID. We need to check whether ID exists, so question mark. If the ID exists, then we will make this request, we will pass the ID. If the ID doesn't exist, we will pass null, and we will use this function fetcher. We need to get the information about the user first of all, so fetcher, pass the URL, fetch URL. It will actually return a promise. So that's all, and now it will return either data or error depending upon whether. So right here we do need to create some state variables because we are updating the name, email, or password. So We'll use the useState hook for maintaining initial value will be empty, email, set email. So we have declared all these variables, state variables, name, email, password. So right here we will be using use effect hook as well. So this hook that you all know, it will only run. Right here we need to specify the condition. It will run, if you write here square brackets, it will run every time. But here we need to specify condition that if the data is returned to us, then only execute this right here. So if the data of the user returns, then only execute it. So right here, if the data executes, if the data fetching is done, we will be setting the updated name like this dynamically, data dot user dot name. Similarly, set email to be data dot user dot email, and password to be. So this is done because we need to pre-fill the entries of the inside the input field. So let's suppose the user hit the edit button, that pre-filled entries need to be pre-filled. That's why we are doing this. And after we do this, now we can simply write the JSX and also write these if conditions right here. If the data is not defined, we'll show a loading bar. So this is typically the same. We return this all this JSX when we created the user. So all these classes will be the same. So I will not waste time in writing once again this. This time this will be for edit user. The rest of the things remain the same. On change, placeholder, everything remains the same. The heading will change from create user to edit user, and the form remains. The create button will change to update. Everything will remain the same. So if you now click your edit button, you will see that it is saying handle submit is not defined. So just make that function. Prevent the auto submission of the form. So you will see automatically the data will be pre-filled. The old values will be pre-filled in the input field. Now you just need to update them and click the update button. So you can do it for anyone. You can see that. So this is the update operation. So now we need to write this handle submit function. So this is very easy. Inside handle submit, we make a simple fetch call to the backend route, await fetch slash API slash users, and again we will pass the ID in the URL. This time the method here will be put because we are updating the information, modifying the information, and also we need to pass the headers, which is and here the body will be, again we will be wrapping this with JSON stringify. We will passing the name, email, password, and if all things are okay, then this will be true, response okay, and then we'll be redirecting the user to the home page. Now this file is done, so just make this function as async. So now you need to go to again your API folder, this route.js file, and right, we define the get method, we define the delete method in the previous. Now here we need to define the put method, request. So right here we need to first of all fetch the ID from params.id. After we get the ID, this becomes very much easy to actually update the user using their ID. So we'll be actually be connecting to the database, and then this inside try catch. We have the function which is user dot find by ID and update. This is a function provided by Mongoose. Provide the ID and then provide the data, updated data, and then there is an object you need to pass here, which is new property. You need to set it to true and run validators to be also true. So new means that we are updating the data, that's why you need to pass this. And right here, if all goes well, and we will simply return the response. This is not necessary, but just for the clarish, we will do it. Success property to true. That's all. This completes the this thing is not necessary because we are not returning, we are not getting some, but I'm just writing it for success message. This really is finding my ID and updating it. So just wait, refresh your, let's suppose if you want to change the name of this, click on edit and let me change it to my name. Click on update. You will see the name is updated and it is reflecting back here. If you also check the database, refresh, the name will be changed. In this way, you can create a brand new user. You can see, you can delete it. Are you sure you delete it? You can edit, change the information. So you can see that. So this is an actual CRUD application, guys, we developed in Next.js 14 with routing and navigation. So if you like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe the channel. The full source code of this application with directory structure, documentation and support is given in the description. You can directly purchase it from my website procodestore.com. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please hit that like button, subscribe the channel, and I will be seeing you in the next video.